Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is held electronically under Bylaw 2020-70 to amend Procedural Bylaw 2018-117 pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. I'm going to start this morning with the First Nations land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. All right, we will move to the adoption of the agenda, and there are a couple of amendments, so I'll just go over them with council so that we can approve it as amended. First off, there was a request to move 7.1.3 to become 9.1.4, and that's the PJYCC rehabilitation capital financing. So it will be going from operations, wastewater, and facilities to recreation. Second off, I'm just going to move the delegation 4.1 will become delegation 4.2, which is Jeff Dean. In order to be able to slip in 4.1 as the introduction of Hannah Gutowski, our Recreation and Community Development Coordinator. So we want to take this opportunity to do that and then let Hannah get on with her day. So with those changes, the recommendation is that the council and committee agenda for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 be approved as amended. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest this morning?
None here.
Okay. Seeing none. Then we'll move to delegations. And as I said, our first delegation is the introduction of Hannah Gutowski, sorry, Hannah, Recreation and Community Development Coordinator. And I'm going to turn to Councillor Wilmer, who is the chair of Recreation, and ask him to put him on the spot to perform an introduction for us.
Thank you, Mary Love. Well, it's pleasant to be put on this spot because we had a great day of interviews after receiving 17 applications, and we were very fortunate to have Hannah Gutowski apply. Very pleased with her interview, very impressed, and I just know that Hannah will do an excellent job. I'm so happy that she did accept the position after we offered it to her, and we're very, very pleased to have her starting, I believe, later this week. So it's worked out well, and we're very happy to have her as part of the team. Know she'll do an excellent job and be a great member of the Madawaska Valley team. So thank you, Hannah, and welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to joining the team. It's going to be a big learning curve. I'm sure I'm going to ask lots of questions, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting started this week.
Well, it'll be great to have you on board, and asking questions is never a problem because that's how we learn the intricacies of the job. And certainly the job you're taking on is important to the community and complex. So it's good that you know the community. It's going to be great to have you on board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sue, yes, Sue?
Yeah, so Hannah will be starting on Thursdays with orientation and just some site visits and facility visits. So Thursday will be her first day with us.
Okay, Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, welcome aboard, Hannah. And I think this is a very exciting time, and I think that a lot of good things are happening in our township. And I'm sure you're very well aware of that. I'm sure you're going to bring a skill set that's going to be, I think, very, very valuable to us. We're a very fast growing township with a lot of young families, even more moving here. And I think the timing couldn't be better. I think we're seeing the end of hopefully the COVID. and many activities can be planned. And I certainly look forward to being part of that, working with you. And I think you're going to find the council very, very supportive, and I have no hesitation at all about after looking at your credentials, and I think we're very fortunate to have you. So thank you for applying, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks so much.
Well, Hannah, you certainly would know a fair amount about young families and what their needs are. So it's fantastic to have young families moving back into this area. It's a trend we'd like to continue. Any other members of council? I think generally we would just want to say welcome, and we really look forward to working with you. So Hannah, we'll let you get on with your day because I'm sure you're busy, and we'll see you Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Okay,
Hannah.
take care.
Thank you.
Welcome, Hannah.
Thanks so much.
Okay. All right, so that's good. It's nice to have a young person coming on board with energy and enthusiasm for our community. We certainly could use that in recreation. It is a very heavy portfolio to manage. All right, so our next delegation is exciting. It's Jeff Dean from CGIS Mapping regarding a demonstration of additional mapping. Jeff, you always bring us neat stuff. Really looking forward to this.
Well, we're talking about managing growth, so we'll show you where we left off and what we've done since then, and some of the things we've been talking with your team about what the next steps can be.
Okay.
I'm just going to try and share my screen. Oh, here we go. Okay, so then if we do this, we do this. All right, do you see a map? No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you see the map. So hopefully this looks familiar.
Mhm.
So where we left off was we were working at bringing in all the water and sanitary data. So creating that. So we had that in there. And then the last request then was working with Nick and Ashley and Aqua to talk about which areas are easier and more difficult to expand and develop based on elevation data. So what we've done is we've enabled them to start being able to click on the pipes, and they're doing a combination of looking at data I'm going to show you, as well as ground truthing and putting in elevation data on sort of the periphery to help with their analysis on that. So that is an ongoing activity working with them. The other thing that was then discussed with them is saying, is it possible to do other things? So we're saying, you know what, yeah, here's an example of things that we can do now as part of sort of the broader system that we're discussing. So we are able to then generate and bring in elevation data of 1 meter contour elevation details. So again, if you're looking at it in this context, again, it's quite accurate. You can put your mouse over, it will show you how many meters above sea level it is. And now it does look like sort of a mess of spaghetti. But working with other municipalities and evolving things, we're able to also display things in a very visual way, which I'm going to show you, which again, as part of the broader system, it's very useful for public works, engineering analysis, planning, building. So we can also then color code those elevations to show you relative high, relative low areas, which is again, a very powerful visual. So again, the red areas are the highest areas. Again, you want to avoid that if you're going to try and pump sewage over it and water. So again, if we're looking at sort of the edges of where all your infrastructure is, you're looking for, again, those sort of flat areas. And we're looking at, again, your northwest or your southwest corner and your northeast corner. In particular, then, through different discussions, especially when you're dealing with consultants that might not be local, but you want to pull on their expertise, they can not only see this, get, again, comfort levels of elevations, but also we're able to integrate in the ability that they can also see what's on the ground without having to drive maybe 4 hours to get there. So if we then open this up, they can then double click on that area that says it's flat, and then they can confirm visually what is actually there. Again, powerful tool for planning, building, public works, all those sorts of functions. So this is, again, something that we are sort of just doing as part of this, but also, again, it's just sort of setting the stage of, again, this is how adopting and, again, working with your operational review, bringing in the sort of the full system in 2022. These are things that all staff can use on a daily basis. But again, looking at the initial things, this has been really helping your staff and other agencies they're working with. As part of the initial budget to do the sanitary and water data, it was $2,000. We came in under budget on that. And so there's about $600 remaining. And talking with staff, something else that we could do as part of additional data without having to basically, go for increasing the budget. We can also look at your cemetery data. So in terms of, it's again a common issue in a lot of municipalities where you have this sort of old maps that are quite fragile. Can't walk and talk at the same time there. And being able to again digitize that information and then overlay that into the whole community view. So I'm just going to show you another community that's doing that and what the deliverable would look like. So if we go here, you could also again staff would then be able to search the database that would then be created. So again, looking at the information you have right now in spreadsheets, we can integrate that data in so staff could again then search by again someone's name. It would then bring it up. They could say, well, where is that plot? So we'd be able to take your paper maps and digitize them like we did with the water and sewer. So you can say, oh, that's where the plot is and who's nearby. So this is sort of then the concept of moving it to, as others have referred to it as, hotel reservations. So you can go here and have, again, which plots are reserved, occupied and available. It also allows staff then going forward to be able to click on here and be able to view the information, edit the information, add information going forward. So that's something where doing that would fit within the existing budget for the hard services data.
So Jeff, you're talking about cemetery?
Yes.
Okay, it took me a minute because I was trying to quickly read that cemetery plots,
Sorry.
and that's something we did
Yes.
discuss. I know Sue did discuss with you.
Yes. So this is something that, again, based on the data you have, we can make it look like this within the existing budget as we are under budget on the hard services project. So this was an idea. They said, cemeteries is a big issue for us. Can you help us with that? And we said, yes, we can help you with that. And as part of the already approved budget. So that was just an idea that talking with staff that they sort of wanted to show so they have a visual of what that could look like. Does that make sense, Sue?
Yes, I think at the beginning of your presentation, you were kind of breaking up. So I think that council didn't hear that it was the cemetery mapping that I had previously discussed. So I had advised council that we really only have the old maps for the Methodist Church, and this would ensure that everything was digitized. We have put everything in spreadsheets, going back to all of the information that was given to us. So all of that previous information, including the Pioneer Cemetery information, would be included on that mapping. So that would include all of the sections from A to F, I believe. And it allows us then to do better reporting at the end of every year so that we know exactly how many interments took place, how many cremations took place. And it's just to ensure for business continuity as well, that it doesn't matter who is overseeing the cemetery, that information is available and can be updated by a third party as well, not just municipal staff. So seeing as I was very pleased to hear that the water wastewater the project that Jeff just did for us is under budget. And I had previously discussed the cemetery. I just wanted council confirmation that I could use the remainder of that budgeted funds to be able to go ahead and have this done before year end, seeing as it wouldn't be an extension of the budget. It would just be a reallocation of that budget.
Okay, Sue, so do you need a resolution of council to proceed with that?
I think just affirmation that we can go ahead and proceed with this budget is fine.
Okay, so council, does anyone have any concerns with proceeding to do the cemetery digitization? Okay, I'm not seeing any concerns. I think that would be very valuable to have that information digitized. Absolutely. Sue, are you also having any discussions with staff about where to go, what the next steps are with this sort of ability and capability, and how we could expand our digital knowledge going forward? to make things more efficient. Sue? Oh, I think she might have froze. Poor Sue is frozen.
Actually, oh, here, actually on that, I could, if you can hear me there, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay?
I can, Jeff.
Okay, so yeah, a couple of things that we have been discussing again, also with your consultants through the operational review, is going over things like this that have been identified, the concept of doing service request work orders, again, across public works, engineering, aqua, bylaw, that sort of thing, so that staff could click on a property, whether they're in the municipal office or at home or remote, be able to see history on properties, being able to add new.
Oh, carry on, Jeff.
Okay.
Oh, am I back?
Sue is back.
From frozen, she's unfroze.
I unfroze.
We're just showing Sue a couple of the other things that have been identified by staff and this discussions through the operational review of just some other things that have been identified as interests. we're
Yeah,
just
so
showing
that was the next step. We'd asked Jeff to prepare some costing for modules so that
Mhm.
for the next 2022 budget, and to advise that we had given a demonstration to Wayfinder as well, so they're aware as to the capabilities of what it
Mhm.
can do,
Yes.
as well as what we are doing. So, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
So again, tracking and managing all those work orders and that stuff across the board, as well as being able to buffer, working with staff on getting the parcels and the assessment data so that you can, again, select within a notice for notification for planning, building, public works matters, selecting all those properties and being able to do efficient notices for letters, envelopes, that sort of thing. And again, then also, again, it's scalable to then bring in, again, your official planning, your zoning bylaw, your planning permits, building permits, that sort of thing. So that's all part of the full system that, again, looking at for the 2022 budget and working with the operational review to identify the interests and how we can do that and fit in the budget.
Okay, Jeff, one of the things that we're hoping to be doing in 2022 is our comprehensive zoning bylaw update. Now that the Renfrew County official plan OPA 31 amendment has been approved. So this could be nicely dovetailed into that project and that process, I think. So certainly, Sue, any way that we can take advantage of the mapping that we can do fairly simply, obviously, it would be great to include that as part of the budgets for those sorts of projects. So I'm assuming we'll see something in our budget. I think I've lost Sue again.
Oh, she's
We're
on
having
mute.
yeah.
She's on mute.
Oh, okay, Sue.
Yes, this is, we will be looking at all of the modules for which departments. And I
Mhm.
think the best way that, the best efficient way and economical way that we work with CGIS is by department. So the full
Mhm.
cost of the module can be allocated by percentage to which department will utilize a portion of that program.
Right.
And again, I think the reason we are wanting to move forward with such a program is that it gets updated to our new taxation system that
Mhm.
council approved last year that we changed to iCity.
And
Okay,
it's,
it sounds.
just following up on that is just so you know what it looked like. If you did the zoning bylaw as that happens, you'd be able to overlay it on the system like this to see zones by property. But
Mhm.
also staff can manage, again, going forward, amendments. So you can say, oh, it was this and now it's this, and you have the history on each of those properties for the amendments as they go forward.
Okay, so it's going to track that history because that could be very important.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Jeff, what you were showing us initially on our the mapping of Barry's Bay,
Mhm.
where you overlaid the elevations, is
Mhm.
that eventually going to be available to the public, that kind of mapping? Like, I'm thinking of developers particularly.
Again, that would be something that we discuss with staff, and
Okay.
they can decide again, freedom of information or privacy or whatnot of what their comfort levels are. But that's something we can discuss at the time.
Okay, I'm just curious because it's certainly someone looking to put in a subdivision adjacent to the village of Barry's Bay would be very interested in the elevation and the water and sewer information. it would give them valuable data in making their decision about the purchase of a piece of property. That was all I was thinking. Okay, any questions? Okay, now I can't see all of council. I apologize. Any questions from council for Jeff? Oh, now I can see everyone. Okay, I don't see any. Oh, wait, Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. Actually, you had a very good question, and that was one of the ones that I was wondering, because we've looked at development, and there's been groups in the past that have suggested and identified certain areas where they were interested in developing. And when I see the elevation, I see that this would be really, really helpful. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I think that's going to be really handy. But I think that it's a program which is multifaceted. I can see where it's going to solve many issues, and I'm just excited about it because I think it's going to be very helpful. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Okay, I don't see any. Where are you headed, Jeff? I like watching as this appears. It's wonderful.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just gonna put that back on there for us.
Yeah, like it's fascinating to see it. I know you said there were a lot of lines to look through, but you can actually get a sense of, when you think about us as individuals driving around the municipality, that topography is really interesting to see on a map and recognize, oh yeah, there's a hill there.
Yes, we don't want to have to pump over that. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So, so this is something actually working with other municipalities where, again, we're working with well over 100 municipalities now, and someone, and actually this idea came from Manitoba in a very flood prone area. And it's neat how, again, one idea somewhere and then you sort of share that with the community. So it's neat how it can be used in different uses.
Jeff, you just literally said the word I was thinking as I was looking at this map again. You said flood prone area. So we do have flooding issues along the Madawaska River, and you're showing us Barry's Bay, but is this overlay being done for Madawaska Valley?
Yes, so we can back out. So we zoom out, that's where we can play with in different municipalities. So we've done two different ranges. So the range we're on here is based on sort of the elevation of Barry's Bay and the immediate area around it. And if we turn on the other view of the world, this is sort of the min and max elevation of the entire municipality. So what we've done in different communities is identify project areas or issues, and then we can look at a certain area and say, okay, well, let's say in some of the lock systems say, okay, well, up in this area, the elevation's here. Can we change the color code from, in this 5 meter range and have it sort of, show what we want to see? So that's where, again, we can do these and identify, areas of interest and have that color sort of pop in certain areas. I know we've done a very detailed project like this in the city of Timmins around the Matagami River, and that they have regular flooding in the springtime. So they've identified that area, and you can very clearly visually predict who's going to get wet next. And we can show you what we've done there, but it's a quite powerful visual for pre-planning and for future planning.
Okay, well, that's something certainly I think council might be interested in knowing more about or seeing more of in the future, because if we had, especially if it can in some way be overlaid with those properties, because it might give us an opportunity to figure out which properties are most likely to be affected by what elevations as the river rises. I don't know how we could use that information yet, but I think as information, it would be very helpful. So I'm just sort of commenting on that so that staff can pick up on that and have a discussion with you about what the possibilities might be going forward. Because between 2017 and 2019, 2 floods along the Madawaska River were fairly significant events for us to deal with. And it would be nice to be able to identify the properties that were going to be affected as the river rises a significant amount.
Absolutely. If I have 1 more minute here, I can show you.
Sure.
So if we go potential impact areas, here we go. So yeah, so what they've actually done here is they've correlated the volume of flow of one part of the river, and then said, okay, when it's at that level of flow, it then typically goes to this contour line downtown, overlaid again with those properties as you're mentioning. So they can basically predict, and again, they've been doing this over the last few years. So as we turn on each of these contour lines, you'll see the blobs will grow, and it will also overlay onto different properties, as you were mentioning. So if we go here, if there's forecast for rain, then the people in the green area will get wet next. And if it keeps raining, the people in the yellow area will get wet next. So you can just sort of see it oozing out in a fairly predictable manner. And so then they've also then started overlaying again after they've seen this and learned from year after year. They can also then add points saying, okay, when it gets to this elevation, we want to then, we're going to put road blockades at this intersection because the road won't be passable. So again, each year they learn more and they can use the information with more confidence to plan of what their next steps are, notifications and preventative measures.
Okay, Council, do we have an interest in staff investigating this further? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. Actually, the slide that you're currently showing us, Jeff, where is this? This is obviously not our area.
The city of Timmins.
Right. So the mayor mentioned the comment about we would be interested in having something that applies to all of the township. And I'm sure you mentioned that could be part of the, and when we were talking about forecasting and everything else, would you know if the OPG uses a similar tool on their waterway, like on the Madawaska River and various places?
I'm not sure. I can speak to Timmins situation. I know OPG and the Outagamie Region Conservation Authority and the city of Timmins, they're all communicating and working with each other, and that's input from all those sort of was put into creating this.
Right. Like we have areas in the township, and the village of Barry's Bay is not probably one of them that we're always concerned about everything, but it's not probably subject to the same threats that we would see on the Madawaska River. And that's why that would have to be a very important part and component of this whole program if we were to consider all of this, because I think it would be very helpful. But I think it does have to encompass that other area, because that is the Madawaska the Madawaska, as you know, is the longest river completely within the boundaries of the province in Ontario. And it takes in a lot of area and a lot of flooding areas, and with the various dams and so on that's controlled by the OPG, I would think that they would use the most modern technology. They don't necessarily have not been sharing this, if that's the case, if they're using it, but it would be good to know that if that technology is there, then it would be used by everybody. So thank you.
I think this sort of floodplain mapping could be very useful. It may be one of the future projects that could be looked into by staff and council, because as we know, those of us who have been through those two floods, it would be very helpful to be able to identify where the water's going as it's rising and as the flows are increasing, or where it's projected to possibly go based on elevation. It's obviously going to go from the lowest up. So, this could be at least give a council a heads up and staff an opportunity to know where to focus attention as a situation is becoming more dire, I guess, rather than wasting time in the wrong area. Make sure you're going to the right area. Right now, we do this all, Jeff, purely by our knowledge of the community and our knowledge of where the water has gone and where we know to look to our citizens that are going to be in difficulty as it rises. But it would be nice to have this sort of tool at our disposal, I think.
Well, this is the neat thing when we're working with so many municipalities, is someone has an idea and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many others that would benefit from this. And so when we're working with the municipality, it's not, here it is, good luck, see you later. We're an active part of your team. So it's basically like you have a living GI strategic plan on a daily basis. So staff can call us and say, hey, has anyone done this? Or can we do this? We're like, oh yeah, so-and-so's done this. Or we'll contact you saying, hey, we're doing this in this community. You already have everything you need. Just if you did this. So that's sort of the ongoing evolution of how this sort of just evolves, working as a team.
Okay, great. So Sue,
All right.
if you maybe could include that as something to look into and get back to council. I mean, we could budget for some of this work through emergency management, possibly.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
oh, good. Sorry, Sue, I can't see you, so I'm not sure when you're here or not.
Sorry, and it keeps saying we have an unstable internet today, so apologize for that.
Okay.
So yeah, so as we show more examples to council, I think you start to see what staff is seeing, which is this is a great tool that takes all this raw data that we have in reports that have been in the past filed on a shelf, that actually makes it interactive, ensures business continuity, and makes it a living document that we continue to update. I think this is very timely, that we are also doing our operational service delivery review. I think it will identify areas where we could use, maybe we need to be prioritizing, but more so as I'm looking at some of these, we see some projects that would very easily deem us to be shovel ready for some funding that might be coming up in the next year or so, as well as we categorize, such as you've just done, like for the floodplain mapping under emergency management. So I think for staff as well, I'm just thinking of some of the documents that you're recently going to be getting, that council was very proactive in moving forward with, like the building condition assessments and the asset management plan. You take all of that data and implement and, plot that on a map, and it's easily updated, easily accessible, can be accessible by third parties, and again, assist us when we're applying for funding. I do think that Jeff has some municipalities that are using the system as well to map their asset management and whatnot. We haven't discussed that, but I'm pretty sure there is. So I think it's just, if it's in a spreadsheet and if you have some mapping, you can pretty much use your imagination and think out of the box to make it work for you and for your municipality.
Okay, another area we might consider is, I know the fire department does inspections of vulnerable occupancies, including those vulnerable occupancies in some mapping where any issues with them are identified might also be helpful for emergency management.
Yeah, so just on that, again, here's an example. So I'm speaking to you from Perth. I'm actually a member of the Perth Fire Department. And they use it to track shipping containers, all their fire responses, all their inspections, everything they're doing, as well as, again, asset management that was just mentioned. Yeah, and actually with that, on the fire side of things, they can also get little summary reports of how many they've been doing. So this goes for, again, bylaw, fire, any of those sorts of things. So if we go fire, current year summary, it gives you live little pivot tables of how many requests of different types that they've been working on, and how many are complete and in progress. So similar to what we're talking about, work orders, you can use that for each department separately.
Okay. I guess, Jeff, the reason why emergency management is on my mind is we just completed our exercise for the year, and of course it brings up a lot of questions about, what do we know about our community? What do we really know about specific areas and the vulnerabilities of our community as we're going through any exercise, whatever the particular emergency is. So this might be very helpful, and it also is a way to make sure that this information is available to staff moving forward, because we can't count on someone being with us for 30 years. Eventually the person who's with us for 30 years retires.
Yes,
and then we lose so much. And if there's a way to start capturing this information and ensure that we have it's going to be hugely important to the future of the community.
Actually, that's one of the biggest things we find working with municipalities. The staff turnover is a huge risk for continuity of knowledge, and we're dealing with it on a daily basis. People leaving, and then who's sitting in for them, saying, "Oh, well, here's the breadcrumbs that they left for you, and you can pick up and carry on," with a lot less disruption than in the past. And actually, when you're speaking of that, one of the things we find by working with planning, building, public works, fire, putting all that information into the central system, it becomes, again, hugely powerful for if you were in any emergency situation. I know the Timmins Fire Department is the #1 user in the city, and that their fire department is using this as like Dispatcher Plus. So if they have any spill or any issue, they can turn this on and all the information's there. And I know, being on the Perth Fire Department, we've had a couple of situations where if there's a spill, it's like, oh, we have the storm system on there. We know where it could go. So we can, turn it on and say, where does this go? So those are, again, having more information can then have benefits that you didn't foresee down the road. And just one quick thing here is asset management as an example. So they've got all their inventory on their water and sewer, but then they've also then prioritized it, saying the red ones are our next priority. And that's all done through a combination of public works, engineering, and finance. So you can theme it, you can click on it, and you can look at the details of why they're recommending that this be the next one to be done. And then you have all your data to justify for funding applications and for yourselves as to why is that the next one to be done.
Okay, so that's something we could even consider with stormwater, catch basins, all of those sorts of things as well. All the assets that we have to manage.
Yes, and it's always the water and sewer is usually the top priority for obvious
Mhm.
reasons, but then it then says, okay, well, now we have that, we want to do the curb stops, and we want to do the hydrants, and we want to do the catch basins, and it just sort of goes from there.
Okay, well, gee, Jeff, every time you come, you provide us with more interesting stuff. It's really exciting.
Well, we've been doing this 22 years, and there's, again, instead of reinventing the wheel, you can again look at the best practices out there and get a head start.
Okay, council,
All right.
any further questions or comments from council? I'm not. Oh, wait, Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think this stuff is wonderful, and I think the more of it we can do, the better off we are. I think particularly just to have this information available at your fingertips is great, and it stops it all from being up in one person's head and not available to the others. When there are staff changeovers, it keeps us with a consistent database, and it just makes it easy and all in one place. And I've seen mapping like this, and I think the more we can do, the better. So it's wonderful to see.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Oh, Councillor Schulist.
Yes, too, Madam Chair. I totally support this here. I think the more documentation and, having a tool at our fingertips not only helps us today, but also into the future. We all aware people do leave, and when they do leave, they leave with a lot of information. This information, if it's mapped well, it's always going to be at the township office. So I am 100% behind anything that we can do to improve the municipality. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Jeff, we've given you some ideas. I know Sue is probably has got many ideas, as do staff, and we hope to see some, we'd like to see some projects that we can tackle this year and possibly the next and the next that would get a lot of this information digitized and available at the municipality's fingertips. So we'll leave it to staff and yourself to discuss where the low-hanging fruit is and how to utilize it best. And hope to see something for our budget for 2022 and going forward, a plan going forward. Sue, are you good with that?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think at this point we'll be prioritizing based on the results of the service delivery review, prioritize it, and then council can decide which projects to proceed with. Okay, great.
All
Fantastic.
right.
Thank you, Jeff. We really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you coming.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Jeff, if you could de-share your screen.
I'm going to try, and all right, thank you very much.
I'll be sending you the cemetery map.
There we are. Yes. Oh, is he gone? Okay.
Yes.
All right. No, that's fine. It's just I can't see everybody when share screen is on. All right. So that was really interesting. Our next portion of the meeting is the standing committee portion. All recommendations from the standing committees are recommendations to council and are pending the approval of council at a subsequent meeting. So we start with operations, roads, and waste management, and there he is. I will turn it over to Chair Bromwich. And you're muted.
And I'm muted. Thank you. Yeah, we have one report here, municipal report from Mike Phillips, and this is exciting, Mike. I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm not going to get involved in describing what's going on because I'm kind of excited about this. So I'll leave it up to you to start us off and inform us of what's going on. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Sounds good, Carl. Yeah, it is exciting and moving very quickly. So I'll get right into the most exciting part of the Public Works update here, the update on Skeets Road, Lakewoods Drive. So I was up there yesterday and a lot of things are moving. As of yesterday, they had about maybe a kilometer left unpaved and they were planning on getting that finished in the afternoon. So as of now, it should be completely paved. So that's a great thing. They were working on some of the shouldering, but they were hoping to, by the end of the week, get the rest of the shouldering completed and then guardrails and then driveway tie-ins, and that'll be it. They'll be complete. So it's pretty amazing how fast they're going, and the quality work out there is nice. It's exciting stuff. I'll move into the rest. Mostly just getting ready for our winter that everyone knows is fast approaching. Getting all the leaf and yard waste hauled from the transfer station. All the regular stuff, getting all the equipment switched over to winter operations from our summer stuff. There's been nothing major going on here for weather events or anything yet, so that's a good thing. And then just getting everything cleaned up, ready for winter. Parks benches in and all that stuff. There was the new Remembrance Day banners have been put up all throughout the municipality, so those are looking really good. And yeah, that's about it. So if there's any questions, I'm sure there's going to be a few on the Lakewood. Go ahead. I'll answer
That's
as best
great.
I can.
Thank you, Mike. I think we're ready for winter, eh?
We are.
Looks like we've completed everything we had planned for 2021 against all odds. It's been a tough year for everybody, and especially you guys, but you've done a fantastic job. Is there members of council here would like to discuss anything with regards to this report? To you, Mark Wilmer.
Just a comment. Yesterday I did go up and look at Skeet Road. It looks great. It's a nice job that they've done, and it's amazing how quickly they did it. So very good work.
Any other members of council on this? Yes, to you, Mayor Love.
Just wanted to thank staff for the hard work this summer and spring, summer, and fall, because taking on the additional project of Skeets Road, just having that ongoing along with all of the work that was planned through the budget, means that they've got a lot done, and they're doing a great job. So, please thank the crew and everyone that has worked so hard. We do appreciate what they do, and we're thrilled that they're getting ready for winter, because I think there's going to be some snow tonight. Just a bit. So we need to be ready, and thank you.
We need Sue, do we need a recommendation read here? I wonder if you could read it for us if we need one. Thank you.
No, we don't have any recommendations on this report. We're just accepting the report. I did have a question, if I may. I did forget to ask Hillary if we had an update on the delivery of the truck. It was supposed to be mid or end October, I think, eh?
Yes, we got a call from Summers. The truck has been delivered to Killaloe, so they just have to put on our stuff, our plow and plow harness and back rack. So we should see it, assuming any day now. But yes, it is landed in Killaloe, so that's the first big hurdle.
Perfect.
That's great. So does that mean, will there have to be a period of time that our mechanic has to, because it's my understanding the existing truck is going to the building department. So does there have to be any work done to that vehicle prior to it coming to the building department?
He's just going to give it a once over. It's still in service here with the Public Works Department, so it's on the road and it's being used on a daily basis. So he'll just give it a good once over before it gets turned over. Make sure everything is, tip-top shape before it gets turned over.
Okay,
Wow.
great. I think that's great. It's timely now that we have the contract position as well. So the building department will welcome the addition of that vehicle for sure. And I just wanted to add, just in closing, the comments for Lakewoods that WSP has been very instrumental and very helpful in the guidance of this project. They've done a great job. Andrew Mansfield will certainly be getting a letter from myself and Hillary on behalf, and Mike on behalf of council. He's had a very good oversight of the project. He's kept Hillary and Mike informed all the way through, and we're very pleased with how well they've worked with BEI and with the township.
Thank you. Wow. Any further comments? I see none. I'll pass this back to Mayor Love. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So our next section is operations, water, wastewater, and facilities, and I'm going to turn it, oh, hang on. Chair, I think there was maybe a question or something.
Ernie? Yeah, maybe
Yes.
Ernie.
Yeah, we were looking at 6.2 and 6.3. Obviously, there was no correspondence, but under 6.3 unfinished business, and I'm wondering, and I did have a look at the action list. I didn't see this mentioned, and I was just wondering, I know Hillary's away, but recent meetings, there's been questions about the progress on the legal work on the Ohio Road, and I'm just wondering if Mike or somebody else has an update on that. I would hope at the next regular meeting that Mr. Kuchkowski will have a report, and hopefully things are moving ahead, because it just seems like we're in a state of well, I don't know what to call it, but let's hope that things are moving on it.
Do you have any information, Mike, on that, or do you?
No, unfortunately, I don't have, Ernie, I don't have the file working with it day to day like Hillary is, so I'll have to leave it for him when he gets back to.
Yeah, if he could just have a heads up that it would be nice to see a report at the next meeting.
Yes, Sue. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So noted. We'll put that to Hillary to have something for the next council meeting. I did want to add, I think the last correspondence that we had was Mr. Kaspersak. We were waiting on Mr. Kaspersak to get something back to us, but what we'll do is follow up with that prior to the report coming to council. So we'll make sure that Hillary brings that back. Thank you.
Thanks very much, folks. Okay, back to you then, Mayor Love.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chair Schulist for operations, water, wastewater, and facilities.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we have a couple of reports here under Aqua expenditures, 5979 update. Sue, would you want to kind of explain a little bit about this expenditure? Thank you.
I believe Andy Trader is on the call.
Okay.
If you had any questions about the expenditures, I apologize, Andy. I guess usually, I'm not sure if Ashley kind of briefed you on how we usually go through these. So generally, he just does a brief update on each of the expenditures. I include all of the invoices to council, so they do view all of those expenditures, and then I just read the resolution approving the payment of those expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I was texting with them last night. So thank you, Mayor Schulist, through yourself to Mayor Love and rest of council. So there is a bunch of capital requests that we have for your consideration and approval. I'll go to the 5979, which is the wastewater treatment plant. There's two items that we have requests in for. One is for the title of it is the Lone Star chain hoist. So it is basically a lifting device that we have at the wastewater plant for lifting equipment out of wet wells, tanks, and everything like that to do it safely. Every year they're required to be annually certified. This one failed just due to the conditions of it and stuff. So the chain had to be replaced. So the cost is for the replacement chain and the recertification of the unit.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trader. Yeah, it's very important to keep all this updated because it's all to do with safety and that. Any council have any questions on this item? I don't see any, so we can continue. Before you go on to the next one, Mr. Trader, there's a recommendation. So, Madam CEO, could you read it out, please?
Prior to reading it out, Chair, I wasn't sure if Mr. Trader had any updates on, or if you wanted to speak to the replacement pump as well. It's included in this resolution. This one was for the $14,000.
I can speak to that one. So this is pumping station number 2, and it's been, I think, 21 years since I've been there, but I believe station 2 is either below Bosco or across from Tim Hortons. So we had a failure of one of the pumps there that everything flows to the pumping station by gravity and within certain catchment areas of the town. So one of these pumps failed, the impeller actually broke, and we investigated. To do the repairs and stuff in-house, it was virtually impossible with the seals and stuff. So the recommendation was to replace the existing pump with a brand new one. They're more efficient, energy savings and everything else. So that was the second portion of this.
Thank you.
All right, because we have to spend some money here, well, first I'd like to have the recommendation read and then we can get a mover.
That council approved the Ontario Clean Water Agency expenditures as presented totaling $15,514.88. Work orders 2449,825 and 2270,332.
Okay, I will move. I need a seconder. Mayor Love, seconds. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It is carried. Okay, 7.1.2. This is another expenditure, 5972. So, Mr. Trader, maybe you can elaborate on this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Schulis, through Mayor Love onto council. Second request is for 4 additional capital requests, one being wastewater and the rest related to the water treatment systems. Actually, they're all water. There's a mistake on that. The first one, in summary, is computer failure. So at the water treatment plant, there's a PLC which controls the operation, but the interface is a SCADA system that we have. So it's a computer that sits there, that does all the monitoring, trending, and it's our interface for controls. We had issues with the SCADA, had to get Capital Controls, which is a system integrator, on site to do some troubleshooting. They got us back up and running, but there was recommended repairs to replace a hard drive and other components. So this is a combination of 2 invoices we received from them to keep the facility in conformance and within compliance.
All right, thanks for the report. Any questions for Mr. Trader from council? Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wondered, did that hard drive failure affect operations, or is there a backup system in place?
I believe there is a backup system redundancy. I think it was just more of a glitch than anything, which wouldn't allow us to reboot or something, the details on it, but Ashley can speak to it in more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Trader from council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the recommendation. Madam CEO, if you could read it out, please. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair that council approved the Ontario Clean Water Agency expenditures as presented totaling $9,980.31 for work orders 2268,210, 2453,756, 2500,430, 2267,158.
Okay, thank you. I'll move that. Need a seconder. Councillor Brumwich, seconded. As any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. All right, thank you very much. Now, the next item here, I know we're moving it over to recreation. I know we're kind of putting Gwen in a position of where do you put something that's under 3 categories. Actually, there's could go under finance, could go under facilities with the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center, and also recreation. Now, the one thing is, Madam's CEO had recommended maybe we keep it under recreation, because this is where we ended up starting with it. So maybe we should, without confusing anything, I have no problem at it going to recreation. I know it has facility, but because we're a council of committee or committee of council, you know, as a whole, it really doesn't matter too much where it goes, but there are those 3 options. So anyway, we have already, I don't think we need any motion to go and, because we've amended the agenda, right? So it'll just go directly to recreation and we'll speak on the matter under Chair Wilmer. True or false?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. And there's no correspondence or information that I see. Is there any unfinished business? I don't think there is any. So I will let this committee go, and to you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chair Schulist. Our next committee is Fire and Protection and Emergency Management, and I'll turn it over to Chair Poplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. And I believe in our earlier discussion, I believe that CAO mentioned that the fire chief was not present today. Is that confirmed?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so we do have some reports from him. So if there are any questions, I'll try and answer them. But if there's anything of particular interest and you would like it followed up with, please make a note of it and bring it to either my attention or to the chief's attention when he returns, if that's okay with the committee. We have in pages 39 to 40 in your agenda, we have 8.11, and it's the fire departmental activities. And so there's an information sheet. He's talking about the new pumper, which has just arrived, talking about Fire Safety and Prevention Week. And my comment on this is there's some really good statistics when we're looking at the amount of fire calls, and it's a real tribute to the department and what they're doing with prevention. And I think it's nice to see that that'll continue, and the inspections and the safety is very, very important, and it is showing up in our records. And so that's good news. So does anyone have any question on that particular page or the subsequent pages, the next page dealing with the backup generator or the surplus equipment? Okay, don't see any. So as I mentioned, if there is anything, make a note of it and bring it to our attention. There's a recommendation that the department activities report be accepted as information. So we don't need a motion on that. Pages 41 to 47, 8.12, fire calls and bylaw calls for service. And you should have that information in front of you. Are there any comments, questions, or otherwise on this report? Yes, Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's just an adding error, because when you look at page 45, which is the fire call breakdown, under chimney fires for October, it says 0. But when you go into the breakdown per hall, there's actually a chimney fire listed for the South Fire Hall.
Yeah.
So just if the fire chief could check how that's, there might be a little error in the spreadsheet. Something's not adding up.
So noted.
Okay, just if you could just
Okay.
double check on that, because it's showing 1.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
Thank
probably
you.
just an error. Thank you for bringing that up. Any further questions by anyone or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Once again, there's a recommendation that the fire calls and bylaw calls for service are accepted as information. We'll proceed to pages 49 to 82 in the emergency review, 8.13, and the review plan for 2021. And with the chief away, I know we have with us, of course, our deputy clerk, and I'm just wondering if there's any comments or anything that I had difficulty getting on. At one point I was able to get on, but I couldn't have any audio, and then I lost my whole meeting. So I see Mayor Love has got her hand up, so perhaps we could have you enlighten us.
okay, just in terms of the emergency response plan, there's just there's one little correction that we need to make, and then there's something we need to discuss. So I just want to turn everyone's attention to page 58, which I'm just going to bring up for myself. Give me 1 second. There's a typo in here. So I was reading through it, and the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act states that, it's in the quote, the head of council of a municipality may declare that an emergency exists in the municipality or any part thereof, and may take such action and make such orders as he or she considers necessary and are contrary to law. No, we need a not in there.
Okay.
There's a not missing, and are not contrary to law. I kind of did a double take when I was sort of quickly reading through this because didn't think that was allowed. So if we could just, I double checked back with my exercise book from when I took the course, and it does need a knot. So Gwen, I don't know how that got lost, but please put a knot in.
Okay.
Don't want mayors thinking they can break the law. Then the other thing that interested me in reading this, having just done the emergency exercise, when we start on page 55, and I'm sorry I'm using the page in the agenda, Gwen, it says emergency notification procedures, and it refers to the OPP. So the OPP is designated as responsible for notifying members of the Municipal Emergency Control Group about the potential emergency and details about the meeting being called. This is the first time. But that seems to be contradicted on page 59, which I'll go to, where it says the CAO clerk or alternate is responsible for notifying all other members of the Municipal Emergency Control Group. And the sort of the vagueness of this continues through. As I read through each person's responsibilities, I found on numerous occasions, it didn't seem to be very clear who was actually initially responsible for getting that control group together. And I'm just not sure why it would be the OPP.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like why would you have to try to get a hold of the OPP in order to have the OPP get a hold of our group? So I'm just wondering if this is something that's in the plan as a residual piece of information that needs to be changed. Because to how our operations tend to work, anyone who found out there was an emergency occurring, be it a member of council, the mayor, a member of staff, they would contact the CAO. And barring the CAO, the deputy clerk, they would contact one of those individuals and presume that they were going to bring together the emergency control group, the Municipal Emergency Control Group. So Gwen, I don't know, is there a reason why it's the OPP or why the OPP has been identified and then it seems to contradict it later?
Can I review it and bring it back to the council meeting for approval in 2 weeks?
That would be great.
Okay.
That'd be great, because as we did the exercise, one of the key things that we identify is anything that gets a little bit vague or confusing then becomes an issue, and you don't want to have those kinds of issues. You want to know who do I call?
Yes.
Because for sure that first contact person who then I can count on as being the person who's going to call the meeting and contact everyone and bring everyone together. That's super important to know for all of us.
Yes. When I was reviewing it, I thought the same. I had mentioned that to the CAO yesterday, is that we need to map it out, whether because there's a lot of positions that could be an either or in the event that one's missing, the next person and who that person is. So yes, I could understand where you could, it would be much easier if it was clarified a little further. Sure.
Okay, and just if there's a contradiction in somebody's obligations, let's take it out. Definitely there needs to be a very clear, this is the person you call if there's an emergency. If you can't get a hold of them, this is the person you call. And those two or three people, however many it takes, those designates know what to do. They know, okay, it's my job to do this.
Okay.
And that's all I wanted was clarity, because that I find when we do our exercise, those are the issues that trip us up when there's gray areas.
Any further comment? I think that's an extremely important part. It was something that I'd noticed, and I wondered whether it was this part of the new plan that's coming out of the Ontario government, coming from them, and we've merely just copied what they were writing down, because in all my dealings with the committee before, I never saw that role being taken on by the OPP. They're interested if there's something of interest to them, and it could only be traffic management, or it could be, it's not, maybe not a life-saving situation, or where they normally would be called. So to put all this extra responsibility on them is, and I would go further to the the deputy clerk has mentioned about having a report back for the next council meeting, I would also put this by the OPP. They may be receiving directives from Toronto right now. I don't know where they're in charge of doing this. And so they may be getting something as well. So let's get this clarified, but it doesn't run it smoothly. And so thanks for bringing it up. And I think it's now's the time to get it straightened out. Are there any other comments on that particular report? Yes, Madam CAO.
Not so much on the report. I just wanted to brief council about the emergency, the tabletop emergency report that we had. I thought it was very well done. Thank you, Gwen, for having done the scenario. I know you and Corey had proposed a scenario. I know you led the discussion, and you invited all of the players at the table. I think it was very beneficial. We heard a lot of, and you received a lot of very positive response from individuals that had not partaken before. And I do think there had been a couple of recommendations coming forward as to additions to the plan, but that after having talked to Gwen, that is something when we approve it in 2022, we'll have those additions to that plan. But I thought it was very well done, especially in the world of Zoom. It's very difficult to try to pretend you're having an emergency when you're doing it over Zoom and everyone is separate and the scenario is being read out. So it's a different type of attention that is required during the tabletop. But I thought it was very well done. I thought it was beneficial. I thought that everyone had some good takeaways from it. So thank you, Gwen, for the role that you played, and as well to Corey for the role that he played.
Great. Hey, yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I just also wanted to thank Gwen for this scenario. She did a great job, and it's always difficult to put your head into the mindset of what you would do in an emergency when it's just an exercise, and it was very challenging to do it on Zoom. You can't gather around the table and look at a map. You can't, all the things that you would normally have that sort of sense of coming together. It's harder to get that to happen in the Hollywood squares of Zoom. So Gwen, you did a great job, and I do appreciate it, and also pass on my congratulations to Corwin. It's always, as I say, challenging to do these things now when we are dealing with Zoom. So most appreciated.
Thank you, Kylie. Is there any further comments? Just wondering at the next meeting if we would have some sort of recap as to the scenario that you were dealing with for the benefit of councillors and rest of, is that anticipated?
I can do that if you.
I think it would be worthwhile. I know the mayor attended the session, and I tried to, and perhaps others did as well, but I don't know whether the other councillors were part of that, but I think it is important because if something like that happens, we're all involved. So it would be very beneficial. And I think one of the best benefits of having this is a recap later and to find out how it went in terms of the whole operation. And I'm sure that moving forward, I think we'll have that exercise. So thank you again for doing what you did, and it sounded like it was well organized. Okay, if there's no further questions on that.
Chair Paczynski?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify. So we'll bring that back to the council and committee meeting in December.
Okay.
Just so it's not expected that it's coming to the regular council meeting.
No,
that's okay.
Thanks for making that clarification.
Okay, thank you. And I did want to add as well, I do believe that the deputy clerk did record it for the purpose of training.
Okay.
So that maybe Gwen can speak to that later. But yeah, we'll bring it back to the council and committee meeting. I just didn't want council to expect it at the regular council.
The deputy clerk, is there any comments that you wanted to make with respect to that now, or we'll wait?
No, I appreciate the people that did show up at the Zoom meeting for the scenario. I think it was well attended from OPP, the hospital, and the paramedic services. So yeah, I think it went well. It took a little longer than I had anticipated. I only hoped to capture everybody for an hour, and it went on a little bit longer, but that was due to some good conversations that were had during the scenario. So no.
Good. It's worthwhile. Thank you again. Okay, and item 8.14 on pages 83 to 92, it's dealing with the hazards identification and risk assessment 2021 HERA. And there's quite a bit of stuff here to read, and I'm sure everyone has had a look at it. And Corey's not here to discuss it. Is there anyone else that may wish to comment on that?
I will just apologize that this is an online thing, so it's really hard to print it and have it attached, and I could not get the blurriness out of some of the pages for whatever reason.
Okay.
So.
Okay, yes, Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just, I know the fire chief isn't here, but I'm just wondering if maybe Gwen, you know, if any changes were made to the HIRA since the last time it was approved by council.
I don't believe there were.
Okay, and now, yeah, I'm going to ask something even more annoying to you. Do you have any idea why the faults keeps appearing in the frequency category and consequences description many times?
I really don't know, but I think it's a matrix that's used in the program. If you fill in one spot, it automatically puts it into a spot, but I can't speak to it because I haven't done the HIRA yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just, it looks somewhat odd that some things that come up as faults could actually happen, and false sort of indicates no, never, right? So I'm wondering if the fire chief could maybe give us an explanation. I don't know who you'd have to contact. It may take a while to find out why it does that, or it just would be nice to have an explanation of why it shows faults for things like hazardous materials incident, spills, transportation incident. That's something that could happen here. And it comes up faults, and very low. But why faults?
All right, I'll look into it.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's just, if a member of the public asks you a question about that, it would be nice to be able to give him an answer, even if it's the software.
No, I'm expecting a call from the PIOC. They are going to follow up with our scenario, so I can ask her when she gives me a call back.
Okay, that'll be good. See if they can answer the question.
Yes.
Are there any
Thank you.
other, I'm sorry, are there any other comments or questions by council? I just have one point for the deputy clerk, and perhaps Corey is still working on this list of people to call and who would be called in the event of I know we have a general outlay but the actual personnel themselves. And I know the last time the list I had were people on the list that had left and were no longer, if you know what I'm referring to, the list of, we did have one at one time, but it was outdated. And the last time I spoke to Corey about it, he said he was working on producing a new one. So hopefully that is it.
And I know that was brought up during the scenarios. Yep.
Okay, so we will be expecting something then in that regard.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, and once again, there's a recommendation that the hazardous identification and risk assessment report assessment 21 be presented or to be approved as presented. So we don't need a motion on
Chair
it.
Poplinski, for that one, if we could get a recommendation.
Okay,
please.
so we do need one. So I need somebody to make the motion, and I can make the motion, or Mayor Love has got her hand up. She's made it, and seconded by Councillor Schulis. Any further comments? All in favor? Motion is granted.
Thank you.
We have thank you, Madam Mayor, or Madam CAO. 8.2 correspondence and information. Is there anything that I don't see anything else? I have nothing in front of me. And 8.3 unfinished business. Okay, I don't see any comments, so I will pass the gavel back to the mayor. And thank you for your assistance.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair Poplinski. Our next committee is Recreation and Community Development, and I'm going to turn it over to Chair Wildmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. We have 4 municipal reports. We'll start with item 9.11, which we did meet Hannah at the beginning of the meeting, but we do have a report to accept her hiring. Sue, do you have any comments? Would you like to say?
No, I think unless council has any more questions, I just included some of the summary that was included with the resume for council to get a sense of how Ms. Gutowski felt that she could fulfill the position. I do have a recommendation for council to accept the hiring of Hannah, if I may read the recommendation.
I just want to make two quick comments too. I have a list of our people, the people that did applied, and there are actually 17 applicants, not 13. So just a small change. And the second one is my name has 2 L's in it.
Oh, so noted.
Okay, thank you.
So the recommendation is that council accepts the hiring of Hannah Gutowski as the new Recreation Community Development Coordinator, effective November 4, 2021 at Group 7, Step 1.
Okay, and I will move that. Could I have a, is there any, could I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Schulis. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried, and Hannah, you're officially welcome. So there we go. Item number 2 is the Lakeshore Tennis Club committee meeting agenda. I don't know whether anyone has any questions on this. It's just really their financials to date. Mayor Love?
Just once again, just to clarify, member fees retained by MV does not mean that the municipality takes and keeps the membership fees. It means that the municipality holds that in the account for the Lakeshore Tennis Club. So I don't want any members of the public to look through these documents and think that that isn't the case. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And do we need a motion? We have to accept these, right? Sue, could I have the motion, please?
That the Lakeshore Tennis Club report for October 24, 2021 be accepted as presented.
Could I have a mover, please? Mayor Love, and seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion? Mayor Love?
Just a quick question. Was the council representative notified of this meeting? Because it is important for insurance purposes that council rep is attending the meetings.
I am not sure. I think it's Councillor Bromwich. Are you the rep?
I'm supposed to be the rep, and I was never informed of the meeting they had, so maybe we can let them know the next time they have a meeting, I could be noted on that. Because there's no problem with attending the meeting if I'm notified of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's a good point, Mayor Love. So thank you for bringing that up, and perhaps we can make sure that they do notify Councillor Bromwich before their next meeting. All right. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, item 9.13 is the Combermere Recreation Committee meeting. The minutes from the October meeting.
I wanted to note through the chair that these are in draft. They just wanted to ensure that because there hasn't been many meetings in a while, and they're having frequent meetings, that wanted to ensure that those discussions are captured. So I put it in draft. Now these minutes have not gone to their committee yet until they have their next meeting. So just wanted to make that point.
All right, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Mayor Love.
Again, I just want to make sure that the council representative is being notified of the meetings, because council representatives should attend a certain percentage of the meetings annually in order to ensure that we're meeting the requirement of our insurance. So just let's make sure that these groups, now that they're getting back into having in-person meetings, that they are reminded that they do need to notify the council representative of the meeting. Thank you.
Sue?
So noted. I'll send a reminder out to, and actually it's timely, having the new recreation position, to ensure that she's aware of that as well, but we'll send a reminder. And to your point, I think there's been some changes in the executives that may not be aware of that as it pertains to the tennis club. And I'll ensure then that the reps from each of those committees are notified as well. It would be the responsibility of those individual committee members to notify the chair reps, but possibly we could have them copy the recreation community development coordinator as well.
Thank you. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Chair Wilmer. It's good. They had two meetings and I hadn't been appraised, so I appreciate that. And the next one then was it just coincided with my issue with seeing the doctors out of town, so I could not be there. So, but I'm looking forward to serving and being on that committee. And now that we're getting some more new people, I'm wondering if the new people could be given a copy of our bylaw and our information with the rules and procedures in terms of expectation and so on, because that seemed to be an issue when I spoke to some of them. We do have you know, a memo of understanding and procedures and so on. So that would be really helpful, I think. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion on the meetings, we do have a recommendation.
Chair Wilmer, if I could speak to just Councillor Poplinski's request. There was 11 copies of the terms of reference, which is the most recent one that we approved in 2021, and it was provided to the chair for distribution, not just to the new members, but to the existing members as well.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yep.
All right, Sue, could you read the recommendation, please?
The Combermere Recreation Report for October 2021 be accepted as presented.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, item 9.14 is the PJY Community Center capital financing, and we have a report on this and a recommendation from Amanda. So, and there's Amanda. So perhaps Amanda, if you could speak on this.
Certainly. Grab my report here. So at a previous council and committee meeting, there was a request to update council members on what the financing rates are from Infrastructure Ontario and provide some possible discussion options on any sort of capital projects that might take place with the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center, with the base being the base capital project being the ice lab replacement, and then there have also been other items on the list. So I did reach out to Infrastructure Ontario because they are typically the ones with the lowest financing rates available to us. So in the report, I've itemized them as amortizer and serial rates, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, with 5-year increments. So as you can see, the rates have gone up since the spring of 2021. They're up about approximately 1%. Within each loan type, amortizer and serial. So these rates are fluid, as we know. Lending rates change all the time, and it is my belief that these rates will start increasing, as the Bank of Canada did recently announce that they will be increasing lending rates as well in the very near future. So these rates are only locked in once construction is complete. So we can find out what the rates are right now, but you know, it could take up to a year for construction depending on the scope of the project. And it's not until that time that the construction is complete, so it could be a year, that we will know the true lending rates. So within my report, I've just defined what the serial and an amortizer loan is. So I've provided a couple of options. Option 1 is a $1 million loan. Option 2 is a $1.5 million loan. And I've divided them between serial and amortizer, what your costs will be, total overall costs with the interest rates as they are defined today. Option 3 is there is a floating rate capital loan that we can utilize for a maximum of 5 years. And you enter into it upon completion of construction. So it's sort of like a line of credit. So you get a lower rate, interest rate, you pay the interest, and you have up to 5 years to decide on how you wish to finance this, the construction. So at the completion of construction, you would ask for however much funding you require. Once approved, then you would just be required to pay the interest on that for up to a maximum of 5 years. And then option 4, I've also itemized the option of borrowing internally from our own reserve funds. Within the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center Reserve, we have $395,000. So I've outlined that we could deplete that reserve, borrow from a landfill rehabilitation reserve and a leachate collection reserve, and then enter into a bylaw to repay these monies back within 10 years or whatever the term that council decides, with an interest rate or no interest rate, as you see fit. This means that we would be using our own savings that we've already identified for certain certain departments, but these funds so far we have not used them. They are sitting there for us until such time that we require them. So if we were to use them and then a situation down the road comes up where we require these funds, then it would require council to sit down at that time and discuss how we are going to get these monies back. And it might be going into a debenture at that time if we need them before, you know, a 10-year limit or 15 or however long you wish to take. So I used a $1 million project construction cost. We don't know what the construction costs will be, and the construction costs change all the time. So until such time that, you know, we have the tender documents drawn up, and then we have an RFP go out, and we have the construction companies bid back, we don't really know exactly how much any sort of project will cost us. The $1 million that I used, I referenced $1 million from a previous report. It was identified that just the replacement of the ice slab and boards would be $1 million. Plus, we'd still have to pay engineering fees, contingency costs, and the 1.76% HST. So within option 4, if we were to borrow funds from our internal reserves with a payback debenture of, you know, 10 years, that would be a $60,500 annual repayment. And I'm just giving these numbers just so you can have an idea of what this would look like. We would be looking at a 1.5% tax levy increase. So any decision that we make for capital projects for facilities, there needs to be an understanding that if we are not going to reduce services, reduce capital reserves, reduce staffing, there will have to be a continuous tax levy increase in order to finance this project. So I've itemized those items there for you for your discussion, and I am welcoming any questions that you may have, as much as that I can answer for you. Councillor Schuler.
Schulis?
Oh, yes, to you, Mr. Chair. Amanda, great report. Absolutely wonderful. It gives us a lot of options here. Yes, option 4, if we can somehow use our own money within our township, I think this is a great idea. Option 3 is not also terrible. I mean, if you're talking about a line of credit, one of the things we'll be looking at is so that we want to pay this off as soon as we can with a line of credit. That system, you're open to make payments whenever, and I think this will be important. One of the things is we're going to be discussing, surplus land and so on there. So there is going to be capital probably coming from there, but at the same time here, our best option absolutely is number 4. The one thing I want to mention to council is that one thing we have not been too successful is getting grant money, and I know that we're going to be going to tender. We are going to do this project. We want to do this project, and there is, don't want to use the word fear, but I do have a problem sometimes if you do end up accepting a tender. Again, we don't know what the number is, but once we do that, we're not eligible for grant money. So I'm looking at here is maybe we should be proactive, and maybe we should go and write a letter to the Ministry of Infrastructure, MPP. I think her name is Kinga Surma. And I mean, we're going to have all the criteria shovel ready. And I'm just putting this out for council to discuss, but I think we should tell them that we would like to get into a partnership. There's no grant money out there, but I always believe that if the government can put money into a project and also the community, I think this might be a good step to go and at least write a letter. Of course, we would have to carbon copy our MPP, Mr. John Yakubuski, and so on. So I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but those are my thoughts at this moment, and I probably run out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mayor Love.
Just in response to Councillor Schulis' suggestion, Council, please do note that I've had numerous conversations with our MPP, John Yakubuski, about this. I mean, the facility bears his dad's name. He is, just as concerned as we are, and he has pulled every string he could to see if he could get us some funding. Our best shot at funding was the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Community Culture and Recreation stream. We were not successful. The chances of there being more grants between now and when we need to do this, and we need to do this soon, we've identified we want to do it next year, the chances of there being more grants is very slim. But should something come up, MPP Yakubuski has said that his staff will let us know of anything. So I've had those one-on-one conversations, and he's very aware and very supportive, but there just isn't any other money. And that's understandable with what's going on in the world. Now, I don't think writing a letter is going to, unfortunately, just put us along with a lot of other municipalities that may be writing a letter. Our best bet was if Minister Yakubuski, I keep wanting to call him Minister Yakubuski, I apologize, I got so used to that. If MPP Yakubuski would let us know if anything's coming up, and he did definitely say he and his staff would give us a heads up if anything was coming. We have heard nothing. There's nothing coming. This is the only thing I can presume based on the fact we haven't heard anything. If we go back to why we were turned down from the best chance we had to get money for this project, the email that our treasurer received from in 2020 in August states that the provincial assessment criteria included reviewing projects based on community need. Well, we tick that box. Community support, we tick that box. Lack of similar services available nearby, we tick that box. We're the arena for a number of municipalities in this area. Operational financial capacity. Remember that one. Value for money, asset management planning. Remember that one. Whether projects were open to the public and efficiencies through joint projects. So the next line in this email says your organization may be able to access other financial tools. Example, Infrastructure Ontario loans to support local projects. Unfortunately, as a municipality that has done reasonably well at beginning to address our asset management needs in many areas, specifically those areas, roads, waste management, we're just starting to get into facilities and those issues. As a municipality who has been working on saving money and ensuring that we have the ability to pay for the renewal of our assets, we are in a position where we are, I think, being penalized because of that. So we are being told basically we should get a loan because we can afford to get a loan. Many municipalities, many municipalities have found themselves in this position, and they have literally borrowed some money to pay for a project because then they can say on their next grant application, oh, we've got one. We've got a loan. I think the treasurer has come up with a really interesting suggestion here. She's suggesting that we self-finance, in effect, that we borrow money from ourselves. We know that this money was set aside for very specific purposes, and she's recommended specific reserves. That's great. She's also recommended that we have a bylaw. Now, any bylaw can be rescinded, but a bylaw clearly shows the intention of this council that when this money was borrowed from reserves, that it would be paid back. It also is evidence that we've basically self-financed or taken out a loan against ourselves. I'm hoping that on our next grant application, that we can show the government that we have used the financial tools. We have borrowed money. We happen to have done it from ourselves. But that means that we have a loan payment that must be made, and that is part of the component of our tax rate. And then we hopefully will not be turned down based on the fact that we're considered to be in a reasonably good financial position. So when I look at what the treasurer has suggested, I think the premise of it is really good. It makes sense. But we have to ensure that we are using this as a tool towards getting future grants for other projects, that we are making it very clear that we did borrow money, that we are making loan payments. And I think if we use it this way, we'll be getting way more bang for our buck, because it's our buck. We're using it to do two things. It's going to be there when we need it down the road because we're putting it back because we have a bylaw that says we're making those payments. And at the same time, we're able to self-finance. So this looks really interesting, but I just wanted to give that sort of spin to it to council and see what you thought of that idea, because we have to be able to somehow defeat this notion that we're in a reasonably good financial position and therefore we can borrow money. Now, when they look at our financial position after we've borrowed from ourselves and used that money, clearly the numbers in our reserves will be depleted. And that's also going to help with that. But we have a very good explanation for it. So we're showing accountability and responsibility. Going forward, this also means that we must ensure that we are setting aside money in order to do the repairs and maintenance on recreational, and other facilities. And I think we have done a lot of work as a council. We've got the building condition assessments. We know what we're faced with. We're going to see how that picture unfolds. And we are on the way to ensuring we're capturing that through making sure that our reserves will cover projects for the future. This arena is one of them. We have got to be putting away more money to ensure that we have the money to fix the things that are coming that aren't part of this $1 million that we know about already, the work that still will need to be done. So I know I'm going on for a long time, but I wanted to express to council that there's a way to look at this that may benefit us. And the treasurer's come up with a really good idea here that we can now use, hopefully, to make sure that the next time we apply for a grant for roads, for something else, that we're more successful, because we have shown that we are willing to borrow and that we're willing to self-finance, but that we're also willing to ensure that that money gets back so that it's available when it's needed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I have a few comments to make on this too. First of all, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think we are being penalized because we are in relatively good financial shape, and that can be looked at as a negative or a positive. It shows we're heading in the right direction, and it does leave us in a situation where we're able to provide an option like option 4. And I think what Amanda has provided there is a very viable and interesting option to look at. That being said, I'm just going to address future grants. I think we've run out of time in looking for grants, and the mayor has been in contact and has done what she can, but there just simply are no grants out there right now that are available to us. I'm usually, and I've always been one that doesn't like borrowing from reserves. I always find reserves are generally underfunded and should be funded more greatly. So taking money out doesn't sit well, but in this case, because we have a bylaw being put in place and we are going to have a set plan to replace this funding, I can agree with it. And I think it's a good way to go. At the same time, though, it's important to remember that if we're putting $60,500 back in each year, we still have to maintain additional funding into those reserves. We don't just stop funding and say we're putting 60,000 back in. We've still got to make sure we build those reserves. We're putting however much we put into this project to make it last maybe 25, 30 more years. At the end of that 30-year period, we need to have more money than we presently, that keeps us out of our present situation so that we can fund something new or replace what we need to replace. My only last comment is, when I look at it, I know the 1 million was based on a report that Stephanie had put together, which just covers the floor and the boards. My fear is we will be short, that 1 million isn't going to be enough money. And I'm just wondering if we have a backup situation when we do. I know we won't know until we get our tenders in, but when they do come in, if they're 1.2, 1.3, do we have a plan, or is there something we will be able to do? I'm asking this of Amanda, if she has any thoughts on how we could cover that overrun.
So it's unfortunate that we don't have our asset management and long-term capital financing program completed, but it is in the final stages of completion and should be presented to council this month. But when we sat down and looked at it last Thursday, myself and Nick, the municipality has significantly invested in roadway projects to the point that we are in the green and yellow bands. We're in a very safe position. And facilities funding for capital facilities is in the red. And it may, when it comes down to it, it may mean that for a year we hold off on a $60,000 road project, and try to build that into future years. It's sort of like juggling projects, and I think that the mayor is right. I think that we need to use this as an opportunity to springboard ourselves into future grant programs for facilities and recreational funding, because we have always been successful with roadway projects, because we have always had those $100,000, $200,000 projects that the municipality covers. And we've always had those plans. Every 5 years, we have a roads needs study that we follow diligently to ensure we try to stay on top of our roadway infrastructure. So it may mean that, we are going to have to work on our working fund reserve, our unpaid taxes, and try to reduce that, because we have $1 million, almost $1 million in our working fund reserve to offset those taxes that are not being paid, unfortunately. And if we can have our ratepayers understand that if they were able to have a plan to make sure those taxes came in when the budgets were set, and that we wouldn't have to have that $1 million set aside to offset those funds that are not coming in. That may be a negative connotation towards everyone, but it is the reality. And so here we are now having to discuss increasing tax levies because we have that money set aside that we cannot use for financing our facilities. If it's an additional $100,000 that we might be looking at, I think we'll have to look at other projects at budget time.
Mayor Love?
Thank you, Chair. So the treasurer just spoke about that we are funding roads. Some information that will come to council, but I've seen similar types of information through the county of Renfrew, that our funding for roads is in yellow and green, but our funding for facilities is in red, meaning that we're not setting aside the money we need to set aside to look after our facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, there's been some argument that recreational facilities are not core, and I'll call them core services. The trouble is, when the rubber hits the road, we need to fix the darn thing. So whether you want to talk theoretically as to whether or not this is a core service, and in the past, a lot of councils have preserved the money for roads, and then when they felt they needed to manage a tax increase or reduce something, they would reduce the money that was set aside for facilities, for recreational facilities in particular. So if I take council back, and I went back and had a look at some of the money we've been putting into reserves for the PJYCC. In 2012, it was $11,500. Then in 2013, it was $5,000. 2014, it was $10,000. 2015, another $10,000. And in Amanda's report, in the treasurer's report, you can see the amounts that have been put aside since 2016 to 2021. What I want to draw your attention to is the amount that was set aside in 2021. $166,500. And this council had set aside that amount of money because we knew the rubber and the road were coming together, and this project was going to happen, was going to need to happen, and we felt it was important for our community that it did happen. if council was to look again in 2022 at taking that amount, say 66,500 is making a loan payment, but still putting aside the 100,000 into the reserve, we could begin to build back the money that we need to ensure that we can pay for the work that still will need to be done at the arena. And I will remind you that $48,000 of the $395,000 in reserves was set aside over 2 years for a new ice resurfacer. So while we can do what the treasurer has suggested and we can use the entire reserve, we have to acknowledge and take responsibility as a council for setting the new the new path forward. Excuse me, sorry. The new path forward for how we're going to address facilities. We have to ensure that we are setting aside appropriate funding to look after them. We're not building Taj Mahals. We're not putting gold-plated doorknobs on them. We're just trying to look after them. And we haven't been setting aside enough money to do that. We weren't winning the battle, we were losing it because things were breaking and needing money faster than we were setting aside money in the last 10 years. So I think that this is a great opportunity for us to, as a council, to acknowledge the importance of these facilities to our community, which I believe we are doing by making the tough decision to get this work done, and to change how we view them and ensure that we are looking after them going forward. And we can do it. And we may not need a 1.5% tax increase, because last year we put $166,500 aside for this facility. We need to look at utilizing that kind of funds again in 2022. And we can do the same thing. But we've already got that built into our total levy. So we don't have to increase our total levy by a significant amount of money in order to do this project. We just need to continue to do what we did last year.
Okay. Councillor Pawlinski.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Councillor Pawlinski.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. Actually, the mayor's got some great points, and I'll address that in a minute. I just don't want to miss it. I just want to mention that it's a little disappointing this morning. We have Mr. Kuchkowski, who looks after that facility, and he's not present. He's away on vacation. And it's unfortunate that he's not part of this discussion, because I think it could be very helpful. And so I'd like to move on, and I'd like to address, first of all, Amanda, I think that's a great report. I think it's given us lots of options. And at the end of the day, we have to come up with one that's going to work for everyone. The mayor has very eloquently expressed her views on using the reserves that we've already got, and I like that very much. I'm, as you probably know, and I don't think it's any surprise that I'm not in favor of going out like most and just borrowing the money and charging the taxpayers. I've tried to come up with other options, and I'm hoping at the end of the day we'll have exercised all of those options, and we'll come up with a plan that's going to work. There's a few things dealing when you're borrowing from your reserves, has to be paid back, whether you're paying back the Bank of Montreal, you're paying back an institution, or you're paying back, we have to, and that comes from the taxpayers. Now, Amanda tells me that the tax of the increase of 1.5%. Now, Amanda, does that take into consideration of any other downloads? And then any other, perhaps you could look in your crystal ball, you may have information at your source that tells me that we're not going to see an increase other than inflation. My big concern about when it corresponds with inflation, we're going through a period of high inflation. Just go to the grocery store, go buy some gas, whatever it is. We're going to be looking at some major issues down the road with inflation. So all of these ideas are great. And I think we have to be wise as to what we select, because I am not in favor of just going out and borrowing the money. I really would hope that we would get back to our discussion that we had on several occasions, And we talked about, the 4 issues that we were going to try and find some money, not just put it all on the taxpayers. We talked about a service review. We've got one underway at the moment. Hopefully there will be some cost savings. However, I just want to remind everybody, I think we're going to find some efficiencies, but the increase in activity and everything else in our township requires us to have more qualified people, and we're doing our best to fill those roles currently. So the other thing we talk about is surplus property, and I know we've got a meeting coming up to deal with that. Hopefully that will continue. There will be something there. The other major one, I think, is one which I haven't heard anything about, is the community involvement. There could be something happening behind my back that I'm not aware of, but the discussion of getting the community involved with some fundraising. We have a BIA. Has anybody been talking to them? Has anybody been talking to the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee? These are people in the very forefront of these things happening. Let's get others involved. Let's get some of the other service groups as well. And of course, lastly, the 4th one is the undue paid taxes. I know we're working very hard. Janet's doing a wonderful job. We need to continue. And so all I'm saying is that I think we can put all of this together. I think there's a will to do it. So let's look at all of these. The treasurer has mentioned about the roads and the yellow banding, and that's fine if you're referring only to the roads needs study. The roads needs study is very deficient in terms of deciding anything about risk. They count the number of cracks in the road and when it has to be replaced. But there are we have many roads right now where there's issues of safety. And the issue that we've got with one in joint liability, I think we're putting ourselves in a very, very bad spot. So I think there's a lot of things to consider, and thank you for allowing me to make the comments. And I'm looking forward to working with the committee to get the project done, but let's look at all these options. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Love.
So I don't think, I wouldn't suggest that we take a step back on roads, because we're finally starting to get a handle on the situation. Yes. Council has certainly invested and worked very hard to get our resurfacing work and our work on roads to a point where we're beginning to address those concerns, and we're getting somewhere with it, with the help of 2 very significant large grants that we received, which is fantastic. I don't suggest we take a step back on roads. I suggest what the treasurer has presented us with is a menu of things that are possible and realistic and that we can do. So if fundraising occurs, we can pay back the money we have to borrow from reserves quicker. Isn't that fantastic? So it can be part of it. If we sell a piece of surplus municipal land, that can go to pay back the money we're going to borrow from ourselves and get that back into reserves quicker. We can get this done. We can get it done in what looks like a 10-year window. It may cost more than $1 million to do the basics, but I think if we're open to how we're going to do it, and we now have a sense of how we're going to do it, it includes many components. If we pull those components together and take ourselves step by step through this process, we'll get there from here. And we will probably not be in a position where we have to borrow money externally. So, as a municipality, we're actually in a really good place. We just need to use every tool we have, every financial tool, and then we need to use it and spin it when we go after our next grant for a road, because we seem to be fairly successful at those. We always have a shovel-ready project. Let's ensure we're using what we're doing, that we're being creative, that we're self-financing, that we're borrowing money and we're committing to paying it back, and we're getting ourselves on track. It takes time, but we're getting ourselves on track with having reserves for our facilities to cover the repairs that are needed when they're needed. It will be really exciting to see the asset management information. we're not doing a bad job, council, and we can do this with everything that was just mentioned. All the tools are available to us. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's start off by finding out, what is this floor? What's it going to cost? We hope $1 million. It might be $1.2 million. And then we can work with what we've got and come up with a more detailed and realistic financial plan. But the tools are there. The treasurer has shown us how to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, the tools are there. Timeline is getting awfully tight, though. Okay, Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief here. When I read this, I'm not a financial expert here, but I had some problems with the borrowing from the banks or from infrastructure in Ontario. Amanda's offered option 4 here, and I felt very good when I read this, that we are taking control of our own domain here. To a great extent, we're demonstrating our fiscal responsibility by being able to finance these projects out of our reserves, replace the reserves. Our outlook right now, I feel, with our township, our tax base is going to grow massively within the next 4 years. That's a great thing. We have a lot of subdivision coming online here, a lot of building going on. It's a positive move. We have surplus land we're to discuss, as Ernie Poplinski was just saying. There's probably some money to be made there. I would like to go with option 4, and let's proceed as fast as we can on this, because as Mark just said, we're running out of time here, and this will demonstrate that we can handle situations like this. The government's not giving us grants to a great extent because we haven't shown in the past decade that our asset management on facilities has been working. This will show people out there in the government that we are responsible people. We have fiscal responsibility. And unlike most townships in Ontario, we're in pretty darn good shape financially. So let's use that strength. Let's get on with option 4. And I'll agree with that 100%. Thank you very much.
Councillor Schulis.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, great discussion. It's exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah, I mean, borrowing money, that's the last thing we'd, if we don't have to, we should not. Now, what's ironic here is in the old days, could even be 10, 15 years ago, you know, people, I shouldn't say people, but municipalities would show that they're going broke and they're having hard times, and then they were begging for money for grants and so on. I remember when I was on council in 2010, we were getting a lot of grants because we were in good financial position, you know, and so then we ended up getting money because they could see, you know what, this township can really manage money. Well, we've kind of come to a sort of a full circle where we are in good financial, but they're looking at it as, well, now you can take care of your own. So I kind of find it's a little bit ironic, but Amanda's report, wonderful, beautiful. Option 4, I can see it working. And with the surplus land, I'm very hopeful that we will be able to generate money from there. As far as the public getting engaged, I don't know if it's as easy as we may think for people raising, like the public raising money. So, you know, at some point, I'd like to see a report coming in and say what we can do and what we cannot do, because it's not like the good old days, but, you know, at the same time, we need to know there's more rules and regulations on you know, the public getting involved and raising money and so on. Anyway, I'm in favor of option 4. Let's move this forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had a good discussion on this item. We do have a recommendation that's being presented to us. And as I said, I think we've had a lot of discussion. So I'll ask the CAO if she could read the recommendation.
Yes, through the chair. That council proceed with the ice slab and rank board replacement only. That option 4 which is borrowing of internal reserve funds from other departments, and that a bylaw be passed for the annual repayment of these reserve funds to their respective departments.
Okay, now I will move this. Could I have a seconder, please? Mayor Love? Is there any further discussion? Mayor Love?
Just one final point, because we're borrowing money from our own reserves, we should pay interest at the rate of inflation. And I say that because then the money that we're borrowing is being put back at the value. It's not losing value over the 10 years. So whatever the rate of inflation is for that year, we should pay interest at that rate. That ensures that the money doesn't devalue at the end of the 10 years, and then the reserves we've borrowed from are not put in a somewhat compromised position. I would suggest at least that we consider that. Now, that's something our treasurer could go away and think about and maybe come back to us, whether she feels that would be sufficient. Recognizing that this money now being used will mean that there's a certain portion of money that won't be invested. So therefore it will not be making interest. But at the very least, I would hope that we would ensure that we paid the rate of inflation on what we've borrowed. Thank you.
I would agree with that too. Can we add that, or Amanda, what are your thoughts first?
I can just keep that in my notes for when the bylaw comes to council for presentation, that we have a discussion on that. I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion when that comes up, just to make sure that everybody's clear on what's happening.
Okay, so that can be put in the bylaw, doesn't necessarily have to be in today's recommendation, correct? Okay. All right, well, I think what I've heard is we're saying different things, but we're in general agreement. Councillor Poplinski. Councillor Poplinski, you're muted. Councillor Poplinski, you're muted.
How's that?
That's good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with proceeding this way. However, I would like some reassurances that if we are taking from certain areas, I do not want to see certain things depleted and saying, well, the roads are great and we don't need to do. I think, and I'm also keeping in mind, as they say, the downloading down the way and the inflation of what we're going to experience. And I am not in favor, as I said, sticking the taxpayers with some of the tax bills that we've seen in the past. And especially if there's a reluctance, and there appears to be, from some of the council to engage the community. And if the understanding out there in the community is that we're going to do this project come hell or high water, they don't need to get involved, then I'm sorry, but I think they do need to get involved. So I think we have to make some effort to get the community involved, because many people in this township and outside of the village of Barry's Bay do not use that service. And I'm all in favor of having it there and paying for it. But let's be honest about this, okay? You know, the overdue taxes, I'd like to see a report on how are we going to reclaim some of that money. So there's areas, also we're dealing with the surplus land just around the corner. I know we're having a meeting coming up very soon. Let's get a little clearer picture, because if we don't address these other three components in this plan, then I don't think we've done a very good job. Thank you.
All right, Sue.
Thank you. Actually, I was just going to speak to future donations and or fundraising campaigns. So yes, I think the option before council, so by self-funding, it allows opportunity for us to accept donations and consider some sponsorship programs or initiatives to pay back the reserves bit by bit, project by project over numerous years, and reduce the repayment amount. The treasurer has contacted the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to ensure that we fully understand if there are restrictions under the Municipal Act, so that we know what we're looking at. And we need to familiarize ourselves with and be aware of some of the guidelines as it pertains to issuance of donation receipts, if we're asked for donation receipts, or if we can accept funds from certain organizations that they have their own restrictions through AGCO, to know what they can fund and or donate towards. So same as we are just now getting the approvals that yes, we're going out, we're going to be doing the boards and ice only. In order for us to have a successful fundraising campaign and or involvement from the community, it would be nice that it's not something we keep going to. So this is the project, then we'll know what the goal is. We really don't have a goal. I don't have the amounts that we're looking at or anything, but certainly wanted to ensure that council is aware that it hasn't gone unnoticed by staff. And yes, staff is cognizant of the fact that any monies that we can put back through community involvement is certainly something that will be at the forefront. So thank you.
Mayor Love?
I don't think any member of council has expressed a reservation or a lack of interest in there being some fundraising from the community. Absolutely. What we've just said is that we're willing to look at all the things that are on the table, but what we've got before us is a recommendation that allows us to get going, to get that tender out there and get the magical number back that's going to be probably not $1 million, but we need to know what that number is. At the same time, we are busy working on the issue of surplus land. So, I mean, I think council needs to think about, does council feel this is a committee that we wish to strike to do this fundraising, a committee of council, or is the expectation that this will be something that is done through some other group in the community? And as our CAO has just said, there are restrictions on who's able to do what and provide money to the municipality for a project. Now, if Sue could please maybe enlighten council with a report on some of that information. I know she's been reviewing it, and if you could gather it for our next council and committee meeting, I think that would be great. So we'll have some sense of where those restrictions are, especially in anything under alcohol and gaming. We are all engaged in this and we are all for this. So I don't want there to be any negative sense that there are any members of council that aren't. I see all of us willing to pull together as a team, and we understand the impact on our taxpayers, and we're doing the best we can to address that. And certainly everything we've discussed today is still on the table with this recommendation. This just gets the ball rolling. And that's what we need to do because we're running out of time. Thank you.
And that's the key. We need to get the ball rolling. I think we are looking at all options as far as funding, but we do have a recommendation on the table that allows us to move ahead today without going out of our municipality to borrow. We're using money we basically have in the bank with a guarantee. We're taking it from projects, but we're guaranteeing over 10 years that we're going to pay it back. So I think this is win-win, and it's a good motion or a good recommendation that Amanda has brought forward. So we do have, I see Councillor Schulis, you have your hand up. So one more question. We've got a motion on or a recommendation on the floor with a mover and seconder. So I'll list Councillor Schulis.
Yes, absolutely. Nobody at this table is negative to the public involvement. We just want to make sure that, some of the restrictions that used to be able to be done from before, well, we need to know all these things. Now, if there is a committee of council, I am willing to step up if you need a representative from council to be on that committee. If there's somebody from the public as far as an organization goes and they want to do it on their own, that's fine. I'm just letting you know that let's make sure that we research all this, what we can do as far as fundraising, and then from there take the next step. But if there's a committee of council and if you need a representative, I'm willing to step up. Thank you very much.
All right, we have a recommendation that was moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Love. We've had discussion. Could I ask for a show of hands? All in favor?
Mark, before you call the vote, sorry, can I clarify the resolution to include the words from the option 4 as opposed to just having it state option 4? Just going back historically, if we go back, it'll be difficult to find what option 4 actually was. So if you don't mind, how about I plug that portion in there as well?
I full agreement with that. The seconder, Full agreement, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Do we need to reread it or just we'll make the change?
Yep.
Okay, so we still haven't voted. We did have our hands up. So can we have a show of hands? Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, so we do not have any correspondence or information, and I don't believe there's any unfinished business. So that concludes the Recreation Community Development portion. I'll turn it back, the chair back over to Mayor Love. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wilmer. That was a great job. It's 12:15. I'm wondering if we would be interested in taking lunch at least, well, it's 12:16 now, look at time fly, until at least 12:45. Could we take a half-hour lunch, Council? Councillor Poplinski?
I'm making the motion, Mayor Love.
Okay, moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer, that we take a half hour for lunch. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, everyone.